Welcome to the Total Boss Podcast, and I'm your host, Christiano Green, a podcast where we talk about finding fulfillment through self-development, being a leader of your own life, and getting the most out of it as well. Tenacity, originality, talent, authenticity, and being legendary. It's all about living your best life. Hello, all you total bosses out there, and welcome to another episode of the Total Boss Podcast. I am your host, Christiano Green, and I'm a mindset and relationship coach for both women and gay men. And we are going to be jumping into a topic that I think is relevant to so many of us out there, but sometimes it's a topic that maybe we're afraid to talk about. Maybe it's something that we don't want to share that with other people because we feel embarrassed, we feel ashamed of it. And what's that topic? Its topic is getting over obsessions to guys, to men, right? Now, especially if we're someone who's looking for a relationship, maybe we haven't been in one before, maybe it's been a long time, maybe we keep feeling like we're getting messed around by guys online. And maybe we're used to kind of, feeling a little bit obsessed by guys. Anyone who might show us some interest, or maybe we see a guy online on Instagram or on Tinder or on Grindr, or, wherever we see them, right? And we can get ourselves into some sort of obsession, right? I remember so many times in my life where I've been obsessed with guys. Now, for many of you who've been listening to this podcast for a while, I've been in a relationship for the last 2 years, which has been amazing. And it's been my first real relationship in my life. I know I've had some other relationships, but nothing ever lasted over a few months. The longest was 6 months, and it wasn't even ever that serious. So I always felt like there was something wrong with me, that, I was unlovable, and that, that caused me to have a lot of low self-worth and real low self-confidence, especially when it came to dating and to guys. And so I would get myself caught up in obsessions, right? And I would find myself obsessing over guys online on Instagram, online on OnlyFans, straight guys that I knew at work or, out and about, right? And I'd find myself obsessing and wondering what my life would be like with them. And it just would get to the point where, I would have those sleepless nights where I'd be up all night thinking about this person, thinking about the texts that they've sent me, the conversations that we've had. What are they doing? What are they doing on their social media? Going online and stalking them, right? And figuring out these things and looking at them and just kind of picturing life together and kind of getting into this kind of fantasy world, right? Now, I used to daydream a lot growing up. I would daydream all the time about my life being better, about everyone loving me, about me being happy, me being adorned, me being the best at this, best at that, right? Because, growing up as a gay man for myself, I struggled with, being bullied, having no friends, getting caught up in, alcohol and drugs, right? And a lot of that time led me to places where I was depressed, where I was anxious, where I was feeling very lonely, and I would isolate myself and I would go deeper into those holes. And because of that, like I said, I would daydream my days away trying to avoid the feelings that I was going through and numbing myself with alcohol, right? And then pretending that my life was something else and imagining that. So like I said, I'd go on to Instagram and I would, follow all these influencers who had, hundreds of thousands and some of them millions of followers and just go, oh, wow, like these people have like, amazing bodies. They look like they're living amazing lives, traveling everywhere, getting to do this, getting to do that. And I would just imagine what my life would be like if I was that person or if I was with that person. So I would obsess over them, right? If I was this, blah, 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 blah. I would tell myself all these different stories about what would happen. And it would just get in my head, right? And I know I probably sound really, really crazy, right? So forgive me. But if you can relate to this and this sounds a bit like you, then listen on, right? I'm not so crazy because so many of us do this, right? And so, I get caught up in that loop. So then when I would go on to places like Tinder or to Grindr, trying to connect with a guy on there, my obsessions would get caught up. Any guy that would kind of show me some sort of interest, like he wanted to maybe, he was talking to me first of all, or secondly, he wanted to catch up with me, I would start obsessing over them, because, any kind of interest in me made me feel good in a sense, made me feel a little bit worthy. And so I'd obsess over that person and start again envisioning what my life would be with this person or not. Now, sometimes they didn't turn out well. I'd be like, oh my God, no way. Like this life of this person looks horrendous. I ain't going there, right? It's probably a good thing, right? But there were many times where I obsessed over it and I would make up all of these stories about who this person was and what they were doing. And it just would mess me up. And like I said, I would stalk all of their social medias. I would almost feel like I got to know who they were before I even got to know them at all. I had a judgment of this person because of all the stories that I had made up. And so then if I ever did get to go meet up with them and it didn't live up to the fantasy, I'd be disappointed, right? And the truth is though, in reality, because our fantasies are so vivid and people aren't perfect, people make mistakes, people are human, no one can live up to those fantasies that we create in our head. And because of that, again, rejection would come into play. Or I would reject them, or I'd get rejected by them because, like I said, I would either come on too strong because I really wanted something there because of the fantasy I was making up. Or on the other side of it, like I said, I would reject them because they didn't live up to my standard of perfection. That could happen, right? Now, these are the two sides of the obsessions that can happen, right? Is we can obsess over them and put them on a pedestal, or we can obsess over them and put them, down on the floor, right? So it really depends on how you look at it and how you see it, but this is kind of how we develop it and how we look at that. So if you're someone out there who's dealing with obsessions, like I said, you're dealing with the sleepless nights, dealing with the unanswered questions, reading over every text, like I said, stalking their social medias, right? Whatever it is that you're doing there and you're struggling with this, then, we've got something that we can work on that we can do together here. Now, what do we need to do? Because when we talk about obsessions, some of them, obsessions can be very similar to an addiction, right? Because when you're obsessing over, say, a guy, and we're talking about an addiction to drugs, you're kind of searching for a high, right? Love and attraction comes with its own, endorphins and different chemical reactions that go through the body, right? Which can give you a little bit of a high. Same when it comes to, say, alcohol or drugs, right? You can get a bit of a high there. Now, when we're talking about, how to get over obsessions, some people say to get over an obsession, you need to find another obsession, which to me sounds very crazy. Because if we were talking about an addiction and they said the same issue, you'd be like, that's really messed up information to give to people. So to get over some meth, let's jump you onto heroin. To get over heroin, let's get a full-blown alcoholic, addiction, right? It just doesn't make sense. So why would we assume that you want to get over one obsession with the next? Because I'm sure, like so many of us have done, myself included, that I've moved from one obsession to one guy when like I said, the fantasy didn't live up to it, to then move to the next obsession, to the next obsession, to the next obsession. And the problem is like that energy that we're giving off to the person that we're interested in, they can feel it. And it doesn't feel good. It feels very restrictive. It feels very suffocating at times, right? Now being on the other side of it, I've learned that as well. I've seen it, the opposite side of it, where I've had people being obsessed with me. And I understood how it felt. So I kind of see both sides of it now. And maybe you're out there and you've noticed it in the past, or you haven't noticed it as much, but you can probably look back and go, that makes sense, right? Think about it like that. And so when we're talking about, like I said, overcoming obsessions, we have to realize that like the energy we're trying to get off is that we think that we want to get off for this person to be attracted to us is actually doing the opposite to us. So for us, we need to work on how do we actually get over those obsessions? How do we get over those sleepless nights, those unanswered questions, those texts where we think about this person and we start creating, obsessions in our mind of who they are as well. And if you're someone who, maybe has been struggling with this and it becomes a pattern, it's a cycle. And these are toxic patterns, right? Because when we go through, negative behavior over and over again, that's what we call a pattern. But then when it becomes, like I said, negative to our life and it becomes toxic, that's a toxic pattern. So if you're someone who's been going through these toxic patterns, cycle, like I did, great thing is that I went through that and I had to learn how to overcome that. And I've done that throughout a number of years. Because like I said, I was doing this for say 10, 15 years, right? Mine went on for a long time. You hopefully, for your listeners out there that you didn't suffer for that long. But if you have, know that you're not alone. There are plenty of people out there, plenty of men, plenty of, women out there who suffer with obsessions, right? they even have, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And that doesn't have to be just to what people say, washing your hands or counting things or counting letters, counting numbers, etc., right? It can be other things, right? And sometimes it has an underlying issue with OCD, and sometimes it's separate to it, right? So we've got to understand that as well. But if you're someone who's really serious and you're thinking, well, after listening today, maybe I have to really work on these obsessions, then I've got something that I've just dropped that's brand new that I think is going to be perfect for you. It's called the 7-Day Love Reboot. It's an online course which has been designed for both women and for gay men in mind, where we can learn how we can get over those obsessions in 7 days. Now, there's, video content that I'm releasing for you. There's video tutorials. There's a community-based center. So you'll also get to adapt and get to meet other people who've gone through this program as well and who are going through the similar struggles as you. So it's an amazing online course. And like I said, we go through each day. There's a different module that we cover. And in those modules, we talk about overcoming and understanding your attractions and your emotions, understanding the fantasy and reality divide. We talk about, your own identity and your values and how you can attract someone on that same level. And we talk about how we can, have better communication, create better boundaries, and also learn how to have healthy relationships, especially when it comes to, attraction as well. And then also at the end, we talk about how you can cultivate and learn all this stuff and then find real, authentic love that you can bring into your life. So if that sounds something that, is of interest to you, then I'm going to link that below for you to check out, and see the program for yourself online. It's really affordable. It's only $48, which is a 75% discount, which I'm doing for the pre-launch there, which is over the next couple of weeks. So again, if you're someone who's interested in that, check the link below and check out the 7-Day Love Reboot online course, which I've just dropped. I'm super excited about that as well. Anyway, guys, again, if you've got some questions, you've got some comments, you've got some stories that you want to share, I love hearing from you. So if you've got a story of obsession or multiple stories of obsession, then reach out to me. I love hearing from you. So share with me your stories, share with me your comments, share with me your questions. And otherwise, I will be seeing you next week with another episode of the Total Boss Podcast. And until then, you've got this and I've got you.